President Trump just canceled the signing of one of the biggest housing bills Congress has worked on in years. Not because he suddenly disagreed with the housing bill, not because Congress changed the bill, but because he wants a separate voter ID bill passed first. So, a housing bill aimed at affordability is being tied to an election bill. And whether you support Trump or not, this is a huge moment because it shows just how political the housing crisis has been. So today, let's break down what happened, what was actually in this housing bill, and why both parties supported it, and whether this should have really helped lower housing costs. The answer is more complicated than people think. The bill is called the 21st Century Road to Housing Act, and its two main goals are pretty simple: lowering housing costs and increase housing supply. And the second part is really important because one of the biggest problems in American housing market is that there simply are just not enough homes. And according to estimates mentioned in the report, the United States is really short more than 4 million houses last year, and that's a massive gap. And when you do have some homes that are, when the prices are going up, then of course rents are going up, and first-time home buyers get squeezed, families stay stuck, and even when earning decent amount of money, that still feels like home ownership is just completely out of reach. Now, this is exactly why the bill is got the bipartisan support. Is housing has a few issues going on right now where voters on the left and on the right are saying the same thing. Something needs to be done. A survey from the Bipartisan Policy Center found that 89% of voters across the political spectrum want Congress to act on housing affordability. And that is huge. People are not experiencing this as a Democratic problem or a Republican problem. They're experiencing it as a monthly payment problem. They're experiencing it when they check Zillow. They're experiencing it when rent goes up. They're expecting it when they realize the home their parents bought on one income now requires two high incomes just to afford it. The median home price in the US is now $403,000, and back in 2010 it was $223,000. Now that is a massive jump. And according to Redfin, a family now needs about $117,000 a year to afford the average home on the market. But that is almost $30,000 more than what most American households earn. So when people say that housing markets feel broken, they are not being dramatic. The math is broken. Now, the housing bill was not some magic solution that was going to instantly drop everyone's rent next month. That is important to understand. This was not a quick fix. It had more than 40 different provisions, and many of them were designed to slowly attack the supply problem. The bill included efforts to make it easier to build homes. It aimed to cut red tape. It gave more power to local governments to improve housing supply. It included measures to help rural affordable housing. It included support for communities rebuilding after natural disasters. And it also included limits on how many single-family homes institutional investors could buy nationwide. The last part is interesting. A lot of regular buyers feel like they are not competing with other families anymore. They're competing with investors, funds, and companies that can buy homes at scale. If you are a normal family trying to buy a starter home, the idea of Wall Street buying up houses is not exactly popular. But Trump canceled the signing. He posted that the Housing News Conference and signing would be canceled until Congress passes the Save America Act. That bill will require voter ID and proof of citizenship to vote, and Trump has called it a national emergency. Now, this is where things get messy. Trump argued on housing is affordable. Trump argued on housing is that affordability is really about interest rates. He said, lower the interest rates and you can have all the housing you want. And there is some truth to that idea that interest rates matter. Of course they matter. When mortgage rates are high, monthly mortgage payments go up and buyers lose purchasing power and housing because less affordability. But the problem is interest rates are not the only issue. And I'm going to talk about this for a second, that if you raise interest rates, then of course the affordability goes down. But then the opposite is also true. If you also lower interest rates, then affordability also becomes a problem too, because then prices go up because demand goes up. And then when you have more buyers in the marketplace, then of course you're going to have an issue because housing prices are based on the last property sold. And when the last property sold is now a little bit higher than the last time it sold, then of course everyone goes into a feeding frenzy and they're going to start raising prices because they know they can get more because there's more people out there in the marketplace. And then we have a COVID problem all over again where we have multiple offers on every single house that's on the market. And we all know this, that there is a lot of mattress money out there. And when we have a lot of mattress money out there, that means that people can go above and beyond because they know that they're saving $400 a month because interest rates are now lower. And so therefore they can pay more because the interest rate is lower. So that is a huge problem. All right, even if rates come down, America would still have this problem. If there are not enough homes, cheaper borrowing can actually make prices go even higher, which I just mentioned. Buyers rush into the same limited supply, and that is why supply matters. You cannot solve a housing shortage with interest rates alone. You need more homes. You need faster building. You need better zoning. You need less red tape. You need starter homes. You need governments to actually be able to move. And that is why this bill matters. Not because it would magically fix housing in the summer of 2026, but because it is one of the most serious federal attempts in years to actually address the housing supply problem. And that is why some Republicans seemed confused by Trump's decision. Senate Majority Leader John Thune said that the bill had been worked on for a long time, called it an affordability issue, and said he hoped Trump would eventually sign it. Elizabeth Warren, who co-sponsored the bill, said she had no idea that Trump canceled the signing and accused him of being indifferent to the cost squeeze on American families. So, how both parties are in the awkward position. They both wanted to claim this bill as a win, and Republicans wanted to show that there's something about housing costs heading into the midterms. Democrats wanted to show that they helped push a major affordability bill, and then suddenly the signing gets canceled over a separate voter ID. But here's the weird part. Unless Trump actually vetoes the bill or Congress adjourns, it could still become law after 10 days. So this may end up being more of a political standoff than an actual death of the... But it still matters because it tells you something important. Housing is no longer just a local issue. It's becoming a national political weapon. And that should tell you how serious the problem has become. For years, housing affordability has treated like something cities and states had to deal with, but now it is one of the biggest national issues in America. And honestly, it makes sense. When the average home is over $400,000, when buyers need six-figure incomes, when rents are high, when interest rates are high, and when there are millions of homes missing from the marketplace, politicians cannot ignore it anymore. So the big question is whether they actually want to solve it or just use it, because there is a difference. Solving is slow. It takes years. It takes building. It takes local reforms. It takes unpopular zoning conversations. It takes saying yes to more supply, even when existing homeowners do not want to change their neighborhood. Using housing politically is so much easier. You just blame someone. You blame the Fed, you blame investors, you blame immigrants, you blame local governments, you blame the Democrats, you blame the Republicans. And sometimes there is a truth in some of those arguments. But none of them replace the basic reality: America needs more homes. So would this bill have fixed housing affordability? No, not by itself. But would it have been a meaningful first step? Probably. And that is why canceling the signing becomes such a big story. Because at the time when Americans are desperate for action on housing, even a bipartisan bill that passed, Congress can get caught in a completely separate political fight. That is part why people are frustrated. Not just that homes are expensive, but that when Washington finally agrees on something, it can still get stuck. So now we wait to see what Trump does. He could sign it, he could veto it, or it could just become law without the signature if the timing works out. But either way, this story proves one thing. Housing affordability is now one of the biggest political issues in America. And whoever figures out how to actually build more homes, lower costs, and make ownership feel possible again, it is going to have a massive advantage. Because voters do not just want speeches, they want monthly payments they can actually afford. And right now, that is exactly what millions of do not have.